Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. We're here tonight, Monster Fridays, and we are going to be continuing our coverage of the Saw franchise. We're going to be talking about 2009's Saw 6. Got Coriander with me and Killian as well. What's going on, guys?
Not too much, man. What's up with you?
Hey, man. We are knee deep into Saw at this point, and it's going to be an interesting conversation. Kill. We've talked about this on quite a few occasions, just personally. So I think it'll be fun to have this conversation. And Coriander, who's newer to the franchise but enjoying it, so can't wait to talk about this. Really, really. And let's see who we got in the chat. We got my man Ginger Ninjas in the chat. What's up? Saying hello, all. What's going on, man? Ginger Ninja is ride or die. What's up, bro? All right. We got Kirsten's in the chat too, saying hey everyone, what's going on? All right. And we got my man Eric, the Bearded Entertainment, one of our newer channel members, but such a big supporter of this community for so long, anyways. But what's up, man? How you doing? Nice to see you. All right. So let's get going on our quick thoughts before we go with the intro proper. Kill, I'll start with you. When you think about Saw 6, the sixth movie in a franchise, man, what comes to your mind?
Man, this is Jigsaw's war on shady healthcare companies, health insurance companies,
Right.
and I love it. I mean, technically, he's the good guy in this one, man.
Right. Yes, absolutely. How about you, Coriander?
With these movies, I love how they all tell a story and it all makes sense. They're all connected, where
Mm,
sometimes that it just with some franchises it just doesn't go right or flow
hmm.
right, or they do something to fuck it up. And so
Right.
far, 6 movies into this, I mean,
Mm.
come on, it's still going strong and it's delivering. So yeah, I this is a great one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I gotta agree with that. I think you said it. I think you hit it right on the nail. I've enjoyed, and I know Kill has as well, all six of these movies, and it's just crazy to think that you could have a franchise, especially in the horror genre, where you could have, six films that you just really and for a lot of people, I don't want to jump ahead, but for a lot of people, they actually thought six was one of the best sequels ever. Actually one of the highest rated movies in the franchise. A sixth movie into a franchise is absolutely crazy. You know, so credit to all the people on board, and of course, the legendary Tobin Bell, and we'll talk about him as usual. Yeah, boy,
Yeah,
Costas,
great way to end
boy.
it.
I'm telling
Yes.
you, that's our boy. All right, Kel, let's
Mhm.
start with this thing, man. Saw 6, when this thing begins, or if you have any opening thoughts, what's going through your mind with this movie?
And I know it might sound like a broken record, man, but like when I was watching these, for the first time, I always was wondering, man, what are they gonna do this time? You know,
Right.
what's the hook? What's the angle? What's the connection? Did they mess up Jigsaw's order at Panera Bread? What type of vengeance is he wreaking on people this time?
Right, right,
And
right.
I would say between this movie and the last two, it's delved so much into the backstory of John
That's right.
Mm.
that I just really, that's always my favorite part. Anytime Tobin Bell is on the
Yeah.
screen and I get to learn more about, him and his motivations on why he became the Jigsaw killer, it's always like, the best part for me. So I could
Yeah.
just remember, going into this just wondering, all right, where does this take place in the timeline? Is it going
Right.
on at the same time as another movie, or
Mhm.
and just where are we going this time with them? Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely. Coriander, when these films, they follow a certain structure, to some degree, but I think they also do a lot of interesting things in each movie, which says a lot for a franchise. But that opening trap, and there's always an opening trap of sorts. What did you think about that opening trap where it's basically you're in a
Yeah.
competition to beat the other person by giving your quote unquote pound of flesh, as Tobin Bell says.
Yeah, this is a great trap because this the guy is kind of in an advantage because he's got an extra meat on his body. So,
Right,
he doesn't
right.
have to like chop off a limb like this poor lady did. And yeah, I mean, it was right down to the wire and
Hmm.
right off you're on the edge of your seat. You're like, holy shit, look at all the
Right,
blood. It was
right.
just, it started out with a bang and it
It
was
did.
great.
Yeah, it was funny because I remember when I saw it in the theater, the guy he's a heavier set guy. So he starts
Mhm.
slicing off some of his belly. And then she
Yes.
lifts up her shirt and she's like super toned and
Yeah.
athletic with nothing. And I remember people in the theater were like, uh-oh. So
Yeah.
it really gets that type of reaction from the crowd. And like you
Yeah.
said, she had literally cut off her arm to have enough weight to win,
Yeah.
or I should
Yeah.
say to survive versus him. But
Yeah, and the fact, can I just say too, the fact that
mm,
see, I mean, I would have used that cleaver first thing. It would have taken her maybe 5 whacks instead of sawing her arm to the bone with a knife. And she did it
mhm.
the worst way she possibly could too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she just went for it. She really, really did.
She did.
Um, Ninja saying it's one thing I found a bit hard to follow was where certain parts fell into the overall story. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I will say, at this point, there are a lot of pieces of the puzzle. So, with some franchises, you might be able to jump in, into one of the sequels and you're not too lost. With this franchise, you definitely want to watch the previous ones, in my opinion. That's not to say you can't enjoy each one on their own, but it means so much more when you see it, from the beginning. And it's also the
Hmm.
type of franchise, at least for me, that I've watched multiple times because I enjoyed it, but that also helps me to absorb, all the little things because they really pay attention to little details. What do you think about that part of it, Kill? All the details to these puzzle pieces.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is definitely not the franchise to just jump in and say, "Oh, I'm going to watch the fourth movie," and
Right,
that's it.
right.
Like, no. And I think also that's a part of the journey. You get to have characters come in, like, I mean, if you think back, there were a few weeks ago we weren't even talking about Detective Hoffman because he wasn't in play yet,
Right.
or
Yes.
Jill Tuck, and now they're
Mhm.
the kind of main players right now, and so
Right.
forth. So you get to kind of watch these characters either evolve or devolve, and you
Mhm.
just get to see them go through their own trials or tests, and it's
Right.
just a great journey. I mean,
Yeah.
I truly don't think this franchise gets enough credit, and
Right.
it's a travesty,
It
travesty, I
it
say.
is. It is.
It is
Uh
because it's taken me this long to watch it because I even thought to myself, why do I want to see something that's going to just repeat itself over and over again?
mm.
And yeah, I was a fool to think that.
Yeah, yeah. Eric saying, I love six and the rest of the series. This does introduce one of my only complaints about the franchise. This introduces yet another reason for Jigsaw's work. Okay, yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, yeah. And at one point, you're wondering like you said earlier, Killian, how far can we go back into his reasoning? But I will say,
But this one makes sense though.
right, right. Because really, this is one of the ones that kind of started this whole thing off, and we'll talk about that later, a little bit later, when John, finds out about his diagnosis and he needs insurance coverage, right? Eric also saying there was his cancer diagnosis, then it was the loss of his baby, and I believe in this one introduces his car crash, which tested his will to survive. No, the testing his will to survive that was in two. He mentioned that I believe it was. Yeah, when he was explaining it to Donnie Wahlberg. But this one was the fact that he couldn't get coverage. He had insurance, but Will, who was the head of the insurance company's division, basically wouldn't cover him. So that's how that whole thing kind of set into motion. Uh, Ninja saying helps to watch them one after the other. It
Yep.
does. It does. Eric saying at this point, I was like, well, he was just looking for any reason to kill people.
My
Right.
latte was cold.
Right, right,
Then it would be like, yeah, he's just looking to kill. But I
right.
mean, like we've been saying, this is a legit reason,
Yeah,
these guys
to
are evil, these insurance companies, at least
right. And
this guy who made up the rules himself.
right, he made up the rules himself. He made up the formula.
Hmm.
And I think
Hmm.
this one really was justified, but I also think, and I think this is why it was received better by critics. I think this one really touched home, for people. It's a real world situation. It's a
Yeah,
real world problem.
definitely.
People that have um ongoing situations, they can't find coverage and all that type of stuff. So anyways, I thought it was very, very smart. And there's Will right there, the villain, the quote unquote
With
the
his
villain.
punchable
Yeah.
face.
Yes, and he played it so well. You're so funny you said that because he just had a look on his face was like you just know he's swarmy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it starts off, it follows the events of 5. So Hoffman went into the coffin of love and saw Strom get squashed. And here's the end result of and Strom was a cool character too, man. I really did enjoy Strom. But anyways, there's the rest of his
Mhm.
body, or most of it, I should say. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
And then of course, Hoffman is getting himself together. He gets called out and to another, well, that first scene, the first trap, and he's just hanging around, and there's Erickson, part of the FBI, who brought him in. And then Kill, and I'm going to pass this on to you, Kill, and then who shows up, Kill, just when you thought some people were dead? Here comes
Yes.
Perez, back from the dead.
Yay! I like Perez. I was happy to see her.
Right,
And once again, if you didn't watch the other movies, you would be like, "Who is this? Why should I be
right,
happy or care?" You
right,
know.
right, right.
Hey.
Yeah. But, I think at that point, in other words, you could just feel the walls kind of closing in on Hoffman, right? Because now he finds out that Perez wasn't dead. They were holding that information from him. And it's an ongoing investigation, the FBI, you know what I mean? So it's like you're just wondering, how is he going to stay 2 steps ahead? That was the thing that kept going at what were you going to say?
Well, I'm just gonna say, I mean, can we just really give props to Hoffman? Hoffman stays having to scramble, like, oh,
Yes.
this dude punctured his throat and is alive. All right, and if I
Yeah.
do this, move
Y-
the X, add the Y. All right, I got something for
yes.
you. And now this Perez and, and Strom's boss, and
Yes.
and there's something we'll talk about later that is just like y'all thought y'all had Hoffman. I mean, but like
Yes.
my hat is off to you, sir. You know how to scramble.
He was such a good he was such a good addition to this franchise, in my opinion. You know what I mean? He really cost us Mandalore. I mean, seriously, he just has a certain presence and charisma about him. I think he was very, very good in this role, and just wondering how he can stay ahead of this game. But Coriander, let me pass it on to you. So you're trying to figure out if he's going to be able to survive, this investigation and so forth. But then you start to figure out what the main plot of the movie is with the insurance company angle, and you
Mhm.
see all the people involved with Will that work in his quote unquote dog pit.
Yeah.
They're basically just trying to cancel people's insurance and save the company money at the end of the day. That's really what they're
Right.
trying to do. They're trying to find any loophole that says that you shouldn't be covered, or your coverage should be terminated. And then of course we
Yep.
find out those are the people in the game, quote unquote. First trap, Coriander, is that breathing trap. What did you think of that one?
Ugh, I would not want to be in that one. I mean, it's not like I
Right.
can hold my breath that long. So, yeah, I would probably get crushed like that old dude did. And yeah, it was interesting. These traps, like I said, I thought it'd just be the same shit, but they're different. It's not like anything is
Right.
duplicated. So,
Right.
yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I mean, he basically is put into this game, Will is, and he's
Mhm.
faced in these traps either versus people that he associated with that worked for him at the insurance company,
Yeah.
or he has the task of figuring out who gets saved and who dies. And I loved Tobin Bell in all of these traps. He basically would preface it by saying, your policy dictates, such and such and such, and now we're going to see if you can deal with it face to face, and like in that breathing trap, Tobin Bell on the video is basically saying, in front of you is a man who by all means shouldn't be covered because he's, whatever, 55 years old, he smokes, he doesn't appreciate his life and all that type of stuff. It was crazy, but it was gross. Did you enjoy that trap kill? Because I thought it was pretty crazy, man.
I enjoyed it, but my only issue, and I've kind of said this before, is certain people are in the traps because they have personally offended John, and then other people, you were not a good janitor at the insurance building. You gotta, you have to be tested. It's like,
he was a smoker, man, right? And he was dying from it, so he doesn't value his life. Come on.
But look, that man is the janitor in the building. That's the low hanging fruit. Like, come on, John.
Hey, what's up, Michael?
But no, I enjoyed this trap. It was very interesting.
Absolutely. Eric was saying the traps maintain an aspect of reflecting the crime the people committed. Exactly.
Yeah.
He's a smoker, so it's a breathing trap.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. A great aspect of the movies. I agree, Eric. I really, really do. Coriander, when we talk about the second trap, and that's when to me, it really started to get kind of personal, because first of all, Will has these binds, on his arms and on his legs. And if he doesn't complete the task, if he doesn't complete all the tasks within 60 minutes, they're going to blow up and he'll never see his family again. So he gets to the second trap, and he realizes that he has to either save or let someone die. And it's two of the people that work for him. One is an older lady and one is a younger man. And again, this whole thing was about how insurances will favor younger people and so forth and all that type of stuff.
Healthy younger people. Yeah.
Yes. What did you think of this one, Coriander?
This was rough because you got the mother figure over here, and then you got the young dude who's got his whole life ahead of him, where this woman's lived her life and she's got grandchildren, and it's like, he did the right thing, because I probably would have done the same. So right. I agree with his decision in this kill.
Right. I mean, it was like I said, at this point, I remember when I first saw the movie, I started to really key in on what Jigsaw was doing, basically putting all of these insurance obstacles right in Will's face, real life.
Like they even said, like, that woman had diabetes in her family. So right there, you think, oh, you got to kill her because she's not healthy and she's old, but you can still live a long life with diabetes. So
absolutely.
That doesn't mean it's the end all,
Right, absolutely. And Kill, I mean, I think that they were also setting this up because in flashbacks, you saw John Kramer, and he, when he first met Will and their conversations, and he was asking him about his policies and how does he decide the policies. First of all, what did you think of these scenes and how it really reflected what was going on in the game itself in the movie?
Once again, even before John becomes Jigsaw, he's an examiner of people and behaviors.
Yes.
He asks questions, he listens, he can tell kind of how people are and what their motivations are and what their bias might be. So this was very interesting, because the conversation he has before he gets his diagnosis, and then this conversation here, where pretty much he's telling them, like, look, I've already done the legwork for you. I found this surgeon in Sweden. He could do this surgery. His success rate is pretty high. And he's like, here's all the facts. And essentially, still, the insurance guy is just like, yeah, that's going to be expensive. And we just can't, our rules are our rules. And he's like, but you make the rules.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's the bottom line is they're about money. That's why they have their dog pit of finders of little errors. Like,
little.
He missed one payment and it was late. oh well,
Yes.
then that null and void. We can't, give him this surgery. And
Yeah.
all they see are names and numbers and dollar signs. But
Hmm.
in reality, these are people's lives. This is life and death for people. And
Exactly.
I,
Yeah.
I think that's another reason why this movie hits hard.
It
And
does. It really, really does. I mean, the horror aside, and the traps and the blood and guts and gore aside, this movie really is saying a lot, and Tobin Bell is kind of like the mouthpiece for it, especially in those scenes with him and Will. And they're pretty lengthy scenes. Like this isn't just like a 30-second, 60-second scene. These scenes are a couple minutes each. And credit to both actors. Obviously, we love Tobin Bell, but also credit to the actor playing Will, because I think he was good in his part, in his role. He really did believe that he was that guy, that type of insurance guy. But Coriander, as we move on, in the movie, we also saw flashbacks, which I thought was really cool. That gave you the behind the curtain view of Jigsaw and Hoffman, but
And Amanda.
also
Yeah, I mean,
Amanda is back,
yeah,
baby. Shawnee Smith
yeah,
is back, and some new scenes that really gave a lot of insight. What did you? I'll ask
yeah.
you this first, Coriander, and then you kill. But what did you think of these scenes?
I completely enjoyed them because, like you said, it showed the relationship between Hoffman and Amanda, and that wasn't very good. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it just made you understand shit because, yeah, it just puts pieces of the puzzle together for you. And
Yes.
yeah, it's interesting, and I really, yeah, I enjoyed these scenes. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Kill?
it shows how, I guess, either smart or manipulative Hoffman can be, and
Yes.
how he was pulling some strings behind John's back. Um,
Right.
Yes.
and see, and once again, this is sort of what we were saying a little earlier, when you just can't come into this series and watch one episode,
Hmm.
or one entry, because you will miss so much nuance. Like
Right.
there are things that are talked about in that scene with Shawnee Smith and Costas Mandalore that happened like 2-3 movies ago.
Yes. Yes.
And answers some questions on, well, why did she do that, or
Yeah.
why did that happen,
Thank
you
you.
Yep.
Yep.
know so yeah. And man, this is high level horror here,
It
people. This
is,
is not
man.
this is not, slay away camp, or or
Okay, now
something. No
be
disrespect,
nice.
no
Okay.
disrespect,
Right.
or
Right.
just, big boob teens go to, the car fair and get axed up.
It's a
This
much
is,
more complicated movie. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But in
This
a
is
good
good
way.
stuff.
I don't mean
Yes,
I don't mean
in a great way.
complicated in a negative way. Yeah. Ninja saying it's kind of a let the punishment fit the crime. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. But of course, now it's funny because you got the flashbacks going on, all this stuff is going on, but we also find out more about how this game is being set up with the insurance company, and we meet the mother and the son who are in a cage. They're trying to figure out what's going on. The mother said, "You know why we're here? It's because of your father." And of course, I was telling Coriander, you got the son who's literally constipated the whole movie. And, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. But, so they're trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
But Coriander, we get to the next trap. And it was basically, I like to call this one Cruel Summer, because you got, you're going through this like these steam pipes and everything. What did you think of this
Yeah.
trap?
No. All these traps suck. I wouldn't want to be in any of them. That's all
Hmm.
I have to say.
Right?
And this one, I mean, when I was a cook, I got burned by boiling water. So I know how, and steam is hotter
Yes.
than water. So I mean, no, I'm all set. This poor chick and that guy, you saw at
Yeah.
one point you could see the burn on his neck, and
Yes.
yeah, no, thank you, man. Nope.
Yeah, I mean, he was literally getting punished to some degree in each trap. His ribs
Yeah.
were
Yep.
were fractured or whatever, and in this one, he had to basically pull the lever to stop the steam from coming out, so she could move through the
Yep.
maze. And every time he would pull the lever, the steam would hit him. And it was
Mhm.
basically a question of, can he hold that lever, being
Long
basically
enough.
long enough so she can move, but
Yeah.
he has to get burned in order to do it. So, again, it was really symbolic of this whole thing, the blood on your hands, and Jigsaw said that a few times through the
Yep.
movie. It was literally crazy. But Kill, we got to talk about, I think this was maybe the creme de la creme of traps. We got to talk about the carousel.
The
And
carousel of death.
literally, the whole dog pit is there, all of them.
Yeah.
Tell me what you thought of this scene, man. This was like huge.
Yeah, this is the one because you know, look, I know it's their job.
Right.
I know it's their job, and maybe outside of work, these are good people. They might be, have families and puppies and
Right,
kids
right,
and,
right.
and wife, husband. But this was very interesting to watch because they quickly turn on each other. They quickly air
Yes.
each
Yes.
other's dirty laundry. Well, she called you an asshole, sir. Don't save her.
Right.
And then once again, some even use I guess their sexuality or maybe even their sex to their advantage. Like, hey, don't kill me. I'm
I'm
I'm expect I'm
pregnant.
expect yes, I'm pregnant, and then other
And,
people are
and-
like, no, she's not.
yeah, no, she's not. She's lying.
Yeah,
Dude, I can't lie, man. And Coriander knows this. I was cracking up on the scene, not
Yeah.
not because of them being tortured, but just how they were just basically bickering with each other. And I thought it was hilarious, man.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm sorry, but
It's intense.
yeah, I'm just, for someone to have a job like that and to do that to people, I don't know. I know I couldn't do a job like that. So
Yes.
I don't know what you think would make a good person, but I'm
Hmm.
sorry. There's a little bit of something wrong with these people if they can live with their conscience and do this
Yeah.
job.
They're just
I
cold
couldn't.
hearted. They don't
Yeah.
they're
Exactly. Give
selfish
a
and
fuck
cold
about
hearted.
any exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Agreed. And all of them, like I said, they were turning on each other
Yep.
right and left. And, he
Yep.
steals money from you. He's been doing it for years. And,
Yep.
and it was like, wow, man. Um, but I thought as a trap, it was a crazy trap, man, because Jigsaw said this shotgun is going to, shoot off all 6 rounds. There's 6 people there, and Will can only save 2. And so he had to make a choice, or else all 6 of them would have died. You know what I mean? So it was like, and of course, that whole idea, the blood on your hands, because he had that drill that would pierce his hand each time. I mean, this dude was getting fucked up, man. He
Yeah, it
really,
was.
really was, man. Ninja saying, I don't think they've made a bad choice for an actor to play a certain role. They have all fit in perfectly. I
Yep.
agree. They've had
Hmm.
great actors in these roles. They're memorable.
Right.
Eric saying, I'll say it again. Saw is a big, beautiful horror soap opera, right?
I like that.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Ninja, a fan of Shawnee Smith. Yes. Shout out to the Blob remake. Um, Eric saying the overacting by the final guy on the carousel is one of the funniest things in the franchise to me. Right? That's what
Yeah.
that's what I was saying. He's like, oh well, that's it, isn't it?
That's great.
Yeah.
You motherfucker. Dude, he was hilarious. Oh my god. Um, but no, but this
Oh,
to me was one of the I don't want to sound sadistic when I say it, but coolest traps in the sense of everything involved, how it was set up, what you have to do, the choices that Will had to make, and of course the interaction between all 6. I mean, there's 6 people in this trap. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I thought it was really really cool. But Kill, let's get down to the nitty gritty. While all this is happening, our boy Hoffman, people are on his trail, and there they go right there. Perez and Erickson, basically putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and they said that they had an audio tape that was from the murder scene of Seth Baxter, who was in the previous movie that was the murderer of Hoffman's sister. And they're trying to find out whose voice it is because they're figuring that it's different than John Kramer's and so forth and so forth. Tell me what you thought about this whole sequence where he goes to the audio den or whatever when they're trying to figure out the voice on the voice changer and what Hoffman did.
Yeah, I mean, man, he's in Police Plaza. You know,
Hmm.
he's in the audio room, and
That's
they're
right.
scrubbing the audio. And Perez is so cool. She's just talking to him like, "You got someplace to be. You keep looking at your watch." You know,
Yes. Yes.
because she's
Yes.
not dumb.
Right.
She's
Right.
not
Right.
dumb, and the other
Right.
agent, they're not dumb, but
Right.
they need to make sure. And this
Hmm.
poor woman, she's just, she's the audio tech in there. But
Right.
Hoffman, look, don't
Costas.
don't blink around Hoffman. Don't turn your
Right.
head. Because there you go.
There it is. You know I was ready.
Man, you are
Yo.
quick with it. Look,
Yo.
Costas is quick to stab a neck. I mean, how many
Right?
Yeah.
necks has he stabbed in
Right.
these movies lately? Or slit a throat real quick? Look,
Woo.
I mean, come on. And I mean, and once again, just this character.
Yes.
Like I said a few movies ago, we were like, who is this detective? What's going on?
Right.
And he, becomes the linchpin of this
Hmm.
franchise, whether you
Mhm.
love him or hate him, or if you watch just to see him, is he gonna finally get caught? Or if
Right.
you're like me and probably like you, Knight, you're watching it kind of rooting for him, like, yeah, Hoffman, get out of
Yes.
this.
That's right. That's my boy.
Oh
It was
man.
great. Coriander, I'll,
Uh,
I'll ask you too. What did you think of that whole scene as far as, they're in the audio place and he's literally gonna get found out. What were you thinking throughout that whole scene?
Uh, it was just a matter of seconds, before
Yes.
shit went down. And sure
Right.
enough, yeah, it was he was quick. I
He
mean, just as soon as
was.
he, stabbed, well, he slashed the dude's throat, right? And
Yes.
then grabbed that tech chick and
Yes.
no, he
But
threw a
first he
cup of coffee at that
yeah.
other woman, then grabbed the
Hmm.
tech chick and yeah,
Yes.
he was like smart and he makes a good evil dude because
Y-
yeah, he's just he's like one step ahead of him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He can
Yep.
figure out and react quick. So, yeah,
Yes. Thank
he was
you.
smart. Yeah.
Yes. You said it perfectly because when he walked in the room, it was interesting because as he's walking around the room and the lady is working on the sound, he's just kind of looking around the room and you could tell he's anxious. And that's what
Scoping
Perez
it out
says.
too. Yeah.
Right, right. And Perez says, "You seem like you're distracted." And he says, "I'm just anxious about the tape." But what he was really doing was looking to see what he could use for a weapon because he knew he had two cops that he had to take out pretty much at the
Mhm.
same time. So he goes over to the coffee pot, gets a cup of coffee, and he even takes a sip out of it. Like
Yeah.
he's playing the role. And as soon as he slashed at Erickson, he turned to
Yeah.
Perez and threw that
Through
cup
the
of
coffee.
coffee right
Hmm.
in her eye. And it was hot too, because you saw the steam as it hit her. So she's blind for that second. And then he uses the audio tech lady as a shield. Perez kills her, and then he kills Perez. And I'm like, that's Costas Mandalore right there, man. He's not playing around, man. It was awesome. It was like total carnage. And then, of course, after it was done, he's asking her, does anyone else know about me? And she's like, everyone. And you lie. And da, 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 da. And he killed her. And then he set the place on fire. And he was doing
Yeah.
all this too because he had to rush back to headquarters because the game was almost at the end. So it's like all this stuff is going on and we didn't even talk about what was going on with Jill, because Jill had her own little moments where she was having flashbacks of John and also of Amanda and so forth and so forth. But Kill, this is what we got to talk about. Jill's on a mission. What did you think about? And they talked about this throughout a lot of the movie. She got that box that was part of John's will in the last movie, but we never saw what was in it. Well, we found out what was in it this time, and holy shit! Not only that, but she also saw a letter that was at the site where John's body was, and of course, we know what was in that letter. What did you think about all that, Kill?
just once again how much kind of a futurist John was, or just thinking ahead,
Yes,
and the fact that, hey, I might be dead, but I still want to test Hoffman, and I still want
yes.
my these games to continue, and here's my final wishes.
Mm-hmm.
And Jill, she's a good woman. She's faithful to his wishes.
Yes.
And yeah, man, he saw it all, man. He's playing chess and everybody else is playing checkers.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And and we come to find out, and this is what I wanted to bring to you, Coriander. And also Eric was saying Will goes through a lot of punishment through the movie, almost without hesitation, much better than slow ass Jeff. That's true. That is true,
Yeah.
Eric.
That
Good
is true.
call, bro. That's true. Will was on a mission, and Jeff was always hesitating on shit. Of course he was crippled by his grief of his dead son maybe, but anyways. But Coriander, we find out something that's very, very important that kind of started this whole thing in motion, and that's what was on that letter that Pamela had shown to Jill. Said it was at the site where John's body was recovered, and we find out what's on that piece of paper. What did you think about that? Because then we found out about Amanda. What was your thoughts on all that?
You know, that was interesting because when you first saw the movie, you didn't see her with that guy at all when he was, um,
Right.
when that chick was pregnant with
Yeah.
Jigsaw's baby. I can't, what the hell's her name again? You just
Jill.
said it.
Jill
Yeah,
Tuck.
man, Jill. And yeah, so I was surprised that, you know, with her in this scene, because
Mm-hmm.
who would have thought, but like he says, junkies would do anything. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, she basically is the one that told Cecil to go into the
to
clinic
do it. Yep.
and get the drugs, which
Drugs. Yep.
ultimately cost Jill and John their baby Gideon. So in other words, it was Amanda's fault. And Hoffman said in that letter, and you may not be able to see the whole thing here, but basically this was the letter we saw Amanda look at in Saw 3. And we never found out until now what it was, but he basically was blackmailing her, saying, if you don't kill the doctor, Lynn, in Saw 3, then I'm going to tell John that it was your fault that he lost the baby. So, in other words, it gives you a different perspective of Saw 3, right, Kill? Because Amanda was unhinged, and I was always kind of wondering, why is she so unhinged and so, you know, set on killing the doctor? Now we know
Mhm.
why, right? What did you think of that
Yep.
revelation, Kill, as we start to wind down?
Man, that was kind of a bombshell. I mean, especially if you
Right.
think back to that third movie on how much of a soldier for John
Yeah.
that she Amanda is, and to
Hmm.
find out that all this pretty much started with her when she was a junkie.
Yes.
That's a
Good point.
gut punch, man.
Yeah.
That's definitely a and now in a way I kind of look at it as, well, maybe she's that much of a soldier for him to kind of redeem herself, or some sort of
Oh, good
redemption in
point.
her mind.
Good
Like, it's
point.
my fault when I was a junkie, that I caused him to lose his child, but he saved me as a junkie, and now
Hmm.
I owe him my life.
Right. That's a good point, man. I never really thought about that. Before I get back to you, Coriander, Eric was saying Hoffman turns into a straight animal. He gets backed into a corner and then kills everyone in his wake to get out of it. It's true.
Yeah.
Somebody got to
He
lose.
somebody's got to lose,
That's
man.
right.
That's what Rick said. But Coriander, as we get to the end of this, and again, the story is kind of going back and forth. So Will actually, the timer is counting down, and Will makes it into the room right before it hits zero, and then all of a sudden he has two sides of the room that open up, and you see Pamela on one side, and then of course you see the mother and the son on the other side, and then we come to the realization that his family isn't the mother and the son, it's Pamela. What did you think of that scene? And then, of course, what ultimately happens to Will in that scene for you,
Are you
Coriander?
talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, oh my God. I was like off and into the land. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
All right. So, what was your question?
When we got to the end, when Will got into the room and he saw Pamela on one side and the mother and the son on the
Yes.
other.
Yeah. Um, I I was, this is this is a good question. Oh man. So what was
Well, did you
yeah,
did you expect? Didn't you expect the mother and the son to be his family?
I did. I didn't
Okay.
know that the guy in the beginning who was talking about, was it his heart or
Yeah.
something, because of his, and he had a procedure with the dentist that screwed him out of getting
Right.
insurance, right, for his heart. So yeah, that right there, I was like, what? Because that did confuse me because I thought that that was his wife and his kid, but no. So that totally changed the whole dynamic of everything because you then find out that she has the choice to decide if Will gets to live or die. So
Right.
yeah, it was good. It was a good
And she said she
unexpected
couldn't do it.
twist.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
her
then
son, well, I can.
right.
And boom, and then Hoffman, his trap gets set, and yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, before
Well,
we all right, well, hold on. But
you should
here
have done
before we
him
do
first
that,
then before we
well,
did
listen,
this
hold on.
scene.
No, 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 because I want well, because they were happening at the same time, which was really, really
Yeah.
interesting to me, because like you said, the son was like, well, I can kill you because you turned down my
Killed
father's
my
insurance,
dad.
which killed
Yeah.
him, right?
Hmm.
But what had happened was is we didn't that was one twist, but the other twist that was happening too is that Jill turned on Hoffman and actually put
Yeah.
him in the same trap that Amanda was in part one, in the
Yeah.
first friggin' movie, and
But
basically
that was
saying,
only because it was, John's will for that. That's what he
right,
wanted to have happen to him. So,
right,
like
and throughout,
Killian said, she's just being a good wife and doing what he's asking.
right, right. What did you think of that kill when Jill turned on Hoffman?
He, man, when she did that, I just knew. I was like, this is not going to end well for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
like people keep trying to get Hoffman, and they keep trying, and they keep failing. Punks jump up to
Yes.
get beat down. Okay.
right.
They keep trying to get him. And I like Jill. I mean, I
Yeah,
didn't want to see anything bad happen to her. But yeah, man, it was kind of caught me off guard a little bit,
yeah. It caught me
because
off guard too.
he's essentially John's disciple, and he's
Right,
he's he's continuing the good work. So
right. But
you
but
have
you
to.
saw through the movie, like with the flashbacks with Amanda, she kept talking about, well, you haven't been tested. When are you going to face your test, detective? And he was like, I don't need a test. He says, I cherish my life and all that type of stuff. Now, to be quite honest, and I said this, I thought his test was in 5 with the shotgun, but obviously you saw those scenes where John was basically saying, you like brutality, and basically saying you're going to be tested without saying
Yeah.
you're going to be tested. So this was crazy though, because in that trap, he has to get out of it in less than 60 seconds. And I remember when I first saw this, I was like, how is he going to get out of it? Because his hands were tied to the strap to the chair. And man, Coriander, you saw how he did it. He basically
Yeah.
broke his hand to get
Yep.
his hands undone, and then he's ripping at his face. And I'm like, okay, but what is that gonna do, right? And man, I thought it was one of the coolest things of all time because he got to that, like, a what do you call that kill? It was like a blind or a shutter, a metal shutter or whatever. Because as the thing opened,
It's a
it
barred
couldn't open
door.
all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think about that kill at that point?
Man, that was hardcore. I mean,
Right?
we've seen people who have been tested in these traps do some hardcore things,
Yeah.
carve off their own limbs, or
Yes.
Yep.
what have you. But this, not only was it hardcore, it was smart. It
Yeah.
was brilliantly smart. I mean, that's all he could do. And then, of
Yeah.
course, finally ripping it out, and then ripping part of his cheek and so forth.
Yes.
Yeah,
Joker
like,
style. Hmm.
yeah, I was just like,
Yes.
oh, yeah,
I was
you
like,
you
oh
the
my God.
yeah. When I saw this image right here, I said, Jill, that's your ass.
Yeah.
because
Right?
because if you think about it now, Detective Hoffman, he has nothing to lose. The
Right.
police are on to him.
That's right.
Jill is running in fear, and he's just, hey, I'm free now. you know.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Real quick too, we got some people that have jumped into the chat. All right. We got Lee. Lee jumped into the
Hello.
chat saying hello. What's going on? What's going on? Happy's in the chat saying, hey
Hey.
friends, sorry I'm late. I've been busy as hell. All right.
So,
Oh, it's saying my son was born on Tuesday and I'm run down. Oh, well, hey,
ooh,
congratulations.
congratulations. Yeah. Is
Very,
this your
very cool.
first? Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So he's saying
Yeah.
saying that 6 is a pretty good entry into the franchise. Yeah, I agree. Ninja saying a good twist, but damn, that final trap. Ouch.
Mm.
Right. I agree. Eric saying almost as good as the tracheotomy. Yeah, that's true, man. Like this was yeah, ripping your face in half. It's crazy, man. Oh my gosh. Happy saying, I don't need a cheek.
Oh, nice.
Saying my second kid. Oh, that's
Very
awesome.
nice. Yeah.
That is very, very cool. But I agree, Kill, because at the end, when he gets out of it, it's almost like, man, you just know you kind of get a sense of what's going to happen. And like I said, and as soon as he broke out of it, he ripped his face out of it. It opened, and not only that, but it broke those bars. Like that's how strong that trap is. It literally broke the bars that were holding it right there in place like that. So if he didn't break, basically rip his face in half, he was
There
gonna
goes his
die, man.
head, right?
He was gonna die. But I absolutely
Mhm.
loved how, and I do love the music in this franchise, but the music was going, and when I first saw it, I'm like, come on, man, get out of it, get out of it. You're rooting for the villain, but he's so good
You
in the
know,
role.
yeah, Jill should have stayed. She should have stayed and saw the job, go through to the very end where his head is blown open and
Right,
he's dead. But
right,
damn, she was stupid enough to leave before the time ran out and to actually watch him die. So,
right. Well, I mean, I gotta admit, well, who knows? She said that it was his will, to be tested. So, I mean, I guess theoretically, there have been a couple survivors of these tests. So I don't
I
know. Maybe
still would have waited, man.
no, I would have too, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe she just figured, hey, whatever,
Yeah.
and plus she knew, and we'll get into that in the next movie, but she knew that everybody knew that he was the accomplice to Jigsaw. So she might have been thinking, I've got leverage that way as well. Because remember, in 5, when Jigsaw had the shotgun to his neck, he said, if you kill me or if I suddenly just disappear, I have information on you where it needs to be. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, Hoffman, always had that against him. But anyways, it was a great movie. It really, really,
Hmm.
and I think it was a very smart movie, and I think it's amazing. But like I said earlier, so many people, critics, that is, really gave this a lot of respect. For the storyline and what it was trying to say that was real world oriented. So, anyways, I really, really love this one a lot. I really do. Blackest Eyes is in the chat. What's up? What's
Hello.
up? Yeah. Uh, Eric said, waited with a shotgun just in case, right? Yes. Ninja saying, Hoffman is smart without a doubt, but he is extremely, extremely hardcore. He
Yeah.
is, man. He does not play around, man. He
Mm-mm.
doesn't. Happy saying, is Hoffman a better villain than what we got from Tobin Bell in this series? Tobin only really held the films until the third one and had Amanda as a part of the threat. It's almost a Hoffman series to a point. Well, I think Hoffman, and Kel, I'll let you guys answer this too. I think Hoffman definitely is he's more of like the worker bee, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Tobin Bell, he's kind of that leader,
He's like the mastermind,
the
yeah. And his
mastermind.
little
Yeah.
minions are doing his job for him.
Yeah, because even when Hoffman was tweaking that device that was part of the rack from Saw 3, I loved it when Tobin Bell was like, if you adjust the gears, you also have to adjust the grease to allow for the friction difference. And I'm like, this guy is good. Tobin Bell is a
Yeah.
legend. Oh man. What's up, Extron? Extron's in the chat too. Ninja saying, want to know how I got these scars? Right. Yes. But anyways, final thoughts, Kill, on Saw 6, and we're gonna head out here and then Coriander.
You know, 6 movies in, should it be this good? Should it?
Right.
I
Yes.
don't I can't answer that, but this is damn good, and this is one of my favorite entries.
Yeah. It's a good
Yeah.
one. It's a good one. How about you, Coriander, as we head on out?
Yeah, I agree. This is so far a really good franchise. And yeah, They know how to do it. People need to take notes and see this is how you do a franchise and do it successfully, especially if you're going to have 24 movies. So yeah.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I agree with everything you guys said. This movie, it is really, really good. And I think anyone who hasn't seen this franchise, you definitely need to check these out. And I say all six of these movies have a lot of merit. And this one really paid off so much. And I just couldn't believe it. It was just so cool. But anyways, guys, we're going to get ready to head on out of here. But we had fun talking about Saw 6. Please give the video a like. That will help support the channel, and we'd really appreciate it. That'd be great. And also, let us know in the comment section down below. What did you think of Saw 6? We talked a little bit here in the live chat. Some of you guys are fans of it. Let us know what you think about it and, how it ties all these puzzle pieces together. At times it is a lot of pieces, and sometimes you can kind of get lost in all that. But I think they did a pretty good job of piecing it all together, so to speak. So, anyways, we will catch you guys later. Thanks for hanging out with us. And yeah, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.
Peace.